3 weeks after my grandfather Connor Shaw's funeral, my mother sent a group text. Family meeting Sunday, 3 p.m. Punctuality. No explanations. No beating around the bush. Just a demand. And like a fool, I went. The house was exactly as I remembered it. Manicured shrubs, blue shutters, a porch swing no one ever used. But something was different the moment I stepped inside. It wasn't the lighting, nor the silence. It was the arrangement. My family sat rigidly in the living room, and two strangers in well-cut suits were already waiting. Sienna, my mother said, with that fixed smile she wore to church luncheons and school fundraisers, the one that never quite reached her eyes. Meet our family consultants. She gestured to the two men as if they were old friends, as if this wasn't an ambush with a dress code. One of them stood to shake my hand. I didn't move. I looked at my sister Patricia, who stared at her lap like a scolded child, then at my younger brother Marvin, whose eyes were red but dry. My stepfather Josh stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, as if he'd rehearsed that pose for weeks. Would you like some coffee? My mother asked. I placed my leather brief on my lap and crossed my legs. No. I'd like to know why I'm here. Because we're family, she said, her voice syrupy and rehearsed, and your grandfather would want us to work together. That's when I realized what this was. It wasn't a meeting or a conversation. It was a presentation. A coordinated effort to make me hand over the one thing they couldn't steal from him while he was alive, his legacy. And unlucky for them, I had come prepared. My grandfather, Connor Shaw, wasn't just the man who raised me. He was the reason I believed in structure, in spreadsheets, in keeping the promises you make, even when no one's looking. He started Vanguard Solutions at 27, with a rusty pickup truck and a loan from a neighbor based only on a handshake. By the time I was born, he was a multi-state supplier of commercial-grade lumber, insulation, and concrete composites. Every contractor within a 5-county radius knew his name. As a kid, while my sister asked for sparkly shoes and Marvin played with trains, I asked to visit the warehouse. I loved the sharp smell of pine, the hum of forklifts, the way Grandpa's voice echoed through the steel rafters as he walked the floor. At 12, he handed me my first ledger and said, "Let's see how your brain handles columns instead of crayons." I was fascinated. My mother, Diana, never understood. She liked nice things and she wanted them fast. She once told me, "Your grandfather builds warehouses. I build a life." That life included 3 maxed-out credit cards, a leased Mercedes, and a revolving door of crisis shopping, spa retreats labeled emotional recovery, handbags bought on sale, and charity galas for networking. The will was read 2 weeks after the funeral, in a wood-paneled conference room that smelled of furniture polish and old leather. My mother wore black silk and enormous dark glasses, like she'd stepped off a low-budget soap opera set. Patricia sniffled quietly through the preamble. Marvin just looked confused. The executor, Mr. Reed, kept his voice steady as he went through the formalities. Small bequests, a scholarship endowment for Grandpa's alma mater, a small fund for a retired employee. And then, to my granddaughter Sienna Maxwell, I leave the remainder of my estate, including, but not limited to, all remaining shares of Vanguard Solutions, my personal investment accounts, real property, and personal belongings. The room froze. I felt the reaction before I heard it. "This is a joke," my mother spat, pushing her glasses up her forehead. He must have been confused. "Read it again." "I have multiple times, Mrs. Shaw," Reed replied, unruffled. "Your father was explicit." Patricia gasped as if it were a line from a play. "He loved us all. He wouldn't pick favorites." Marvin didn't say a word. He just rubbed his hands together, as if he didn't know what to do with them. "This isn't happening," my mother whispered. But it was. In that moment, I wasn't just his granddaughter. I was the sole heir to everything Connor Shaw had built from nothing. And I wasn't ready. Later that day, in the parking lot, My mother approached me with calm venom in her voice. Just sign everything over, she said. I'll divide it fairly. I'll make sure everyone's taken care of. I didn't reply. Not because I was unsure, but because I needed to choose my words carefully. I need time to think. She narrowed her eyes. This isn't yours, Sienna. It's ours. Family money, family legacy. That's not what Grandpa said. Her mask slipped. He was manipulated. You spent too much time with him. He wasn't well, but he was. He had updated the will 6 months before his death. Completely lucid, completely intentional. I remembered that day well. He'd sat me in his study and said, "They're going to hate this, but I built this for someone who understands what it cost me." That person isn't your mother. It wasn't a compliment. It was a burden, a responsibility. And now it was mine. The first text came that night. It was from Patricia. "Please don't let this ruin everything. We're still your family." Then my mother, "You'll understand when you have your own children. Family comes first." Then Marvin, a single word via text at 1:30 a.m. Why? By morning my voicemail was full. Old friends of my mother's, women I hadn't seen since elementary school bake sales. "Sienna, I'm heartbroken. Your mother always spoke so highly of you. This is such a disappointment." Disappointment. That word came up a lot. What they didn't see, what they never cared to understand, was what Grandpa and I had actually built together. Not just a business relationship, but a bond forged in mutual respect. I didn't inherit like a lottery. I earned it one spreadsheet, one late-night phone call, one warehouse visit at a time. But none of that mattered in the court of family opinion. 2 days later, Marvin showed up outside my apartment. No call, just his slumped figure on the lobby security camera, hands shoved into his coat pockets, looking like a kid who'd forgotten his homework. When I opened the door, he didn't come in. "I'm not here to argue," he said. "Okay." He lifted his eyes, bloodshot but focused. "Mom's freaking out. She's already calling real estate agents. Says she needs to refinance the house before you freeze the assets." I blinked. "I haven't frozen anything." "She doesn't believe it, Sienna." I just wanted to warn you. She's planning something." Then he left. No hug, no handshake. Just walked back down the hall, as if he no longer knew where he belonged. I closed the door and stood there in silence. Not sad, not angry. Just empty. It was beginning. That night, Eddie, my boyfriend and the only person who didn't treat me like an ATM with a soul, brought over food and held my hand while I stared blankly at my rice. "I want you to meet someone," he said gently. "Her name is Rachel Flynn. She's an estate lawyer, old friend from law school. She's not for a fight unless you need one. She's for protection." I didn't answer, but I nodded. The next morning, I called Rachel. We met in a quiet office above a flower shop. No mahogany desks or intimidating glass walls, just plants, natural light, and someone who listened without interrupting. After hearing everything, she leaned back, fingers laced. "You're already in the middle of a coordinated pressure campaign," she said. "Classic family guilt tactics. But, based on the will and what you've told me, you're on solid legal ground." "I don't want to fight them," I said. "I just want it to stop." "Then we prepare," she said. "Just in case. Document every text, every voicemail, every visit. And don't sign anything, no matter what they call it." I agreed. It seemed simple until the next text came. It was a photo my mother shopping for patio furniture. "Retail therapy through grief," she captioned it. #self-care. The same day, she texted me claiming she couldn't afford the electricity bill. And that's when I started printing everything. The formal invitation arrived in the form of a text message from my mother. Sunday, 3 p.m. "House. Let's sort this out. Bring your documentation." No signature, no emoji, just a time-stamped grenade. Rachel didn't like it. This feels like an ambush, she warned. It is, I replied, but I'm not walking in blind. She offered to come. I declined. I need to face them alone, but I want you waiting nearby. One text, she said, and I'll be at the door in 60 seconds. I arrived at precisely 2:59 p.m. The curtains were drawn. The porch smelled faintly of her perfume, which told me she'd been out there earlier, likely rehearsing. She opened the door before I could knock. "Sienna," she exclaimed, hair freshly done, teeth gleaming like a campaign poster. Right on time. Inside, the living room was arranged like a hearing. Patricia sat on the edge of the couch, spine stiff, hands clasped in her lap. Marvin beside her, eyes downcast. My stepfather hovered by the fireplace like a security guard. And there they were, the two men in suits sitting in the armchairs usually reserved for family. Legal pads, folders, wedding rings on their left hands, smiles too wide. "These are Mr. Carter and Mr. Harrison," my mother said, gesturing grandly. "They've kindly offered to help us unravel this unfortunate misunderstanding." I nodded, but didn't offer a handshake. I wasn't there to be polite. Only one chair was free, a high-backed wooden one, placed directly facing all of them, an interrogation seat. I sat down without a word and placed my leather brief on my lap. "Would you like some coffee?" my mother asked again, still clinging to her desperate illusion of civility. "I'm fine. Let's get down to business." Mr. Carter cleared his throat. "We're here today because your family is deeply concerned about the stress this has caused. No one wants a prolonged dispute, especially when your grandfather's intention was clearly for the family to remain united." I let the silence stretch. "He wrote a will," my mother interjected, her voice syrupy and firm. "And we're not disputing that, darling. But surely you agree that dividing everything among us would be more harmonious." Harmony wasn't in the will. Mr. Harrison opened his folder, sliding a stack of documents across the table. "This is a voluntary redistribution agreement. You retain a healthy percentage, 20%. The remainder goes back to the family, as was always understood." Understood by whom? Patricia finally spoke. "Grandpa was sick, Sienna. He wasn't thinking clearly. He thought you'd know what to do." "I do," I said quietly, "and that's why I'm not signing this." Marvin stirred. "Mom said if we don't sort this out now, we might lose the house." "And why is that?" I asked, still calm. "Did someone take out a second mortgage again?" My mother's composure cracked for a split second before snapping back into place. "Sienna, don't." Mr. Carter interjected. "It would be regrettable if this lawsuit with undue influence claims could taint the estate's reputation." There it was. The threat, cloaked in legal jargon and polished leather. I placed my hand on my brief. "Before I respond, I'd like to clarify one thing." I looked at Josh. 6 months ago, you mentioned to Grandpa's nurse that you'd already put a deposit down on a property in Palm Beach. Was that with inheritance money you hadn't yet received? His mouth opened, then closed. "I have a recording," I continued, "and a paper trail." My mother's smile vanished. I opened my brief and laid out a sheet, a printout from my grandfather's ledger. His handwriting, "Loan Diana, $30,000. She said it was for Marvin's college. Heard later it was a crisis cruise. Last time. Then the next, a dated Instagram photo of her, champagne glass in hand on a ship, caption, "Earned this. #blessed." I looked at the two consultants. "Still feel like doing paperwork today?" They didn't reply. No one else replied. My mother stood up so suddenly her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "You ungrateful." I didn't flinch. I just slid another paper across the table. "May 8th, you told Grandpa Rachel needed emergency dental surgery. He gave you 20 grand. I looked at Patricia. "You were in Riverside that weekend, spa package, right?" I remember the monogrammed rope. Patricia paled. Josh swore under his breath. Sienna, this is low. Rummaging through a dead man's notes to twist his memory against his own family. He wasn't confused, I said. He was exhausted. And he kept records because he knew this would happen. I pulled the last item from my brief, a sealed envelope, slightly worn, addressed in my grandfather's looping handwriting, for Sienna, if they come after this. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. But the two men in suits were already shifting in their seats, the confidence draining from their posture. Mr. Carter adjusted his tie. Ms. Maxwell, we were informed this would be a cooperative conversation. It was never going to be that. And you're not legal counsel, are you? Just pressure brokers. I turned to my mother. You didn't tell them I've already retained a real lawyer, did you? She's in a car outside. One word from me, and she'll be at the door in 60 seconds. The two consultants rose almost in unison. We apologize, one muttered, closing his folder. Mrs. Shaw, we were not aware of any pending legal representation. My mother's face turned to stone. This isn't over, she hissed. Actually, I said, standing up, it is. I gathered my documents, slowly, deliberately. I'm not signing anything. I'm not enabling your spending, and I'm not letting you rewrite the past just because the present doesn't suit you anymore. You owe us. I owe Grandpa. He's the one I'm honoring. Then Marvin stood. Everyone froze, even Josh. I didn't know, Marvin said quietly, about the cruise or the spa, or that you used my name to get money from him. He looked at Mom. You said Sienna was selfish, but you lied about everything. Marvin, sit down, she snapped. No. The word rang like a bell. He turned to me. Can I come with you? I nodded. Let's go. Josh stepped forward, chest puffed out. You. I held up my phone. This conversation has been recorded. He stopped short. We walked out in silence, past the stunned faces of a family who'd always presumed I'd fold. Not this time. Rachel was already out of her car as we exited into the driveway. You okay? She asked, glancing at Marvin. He's with me, I said, and we're done here. Behind us, the door slammed so hard the porch light flickered. But for the first time, I didn't look back. Marvin didn't talk much on the way back. He sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, fingers occasionally clenching his seatbelt. When we got to my apartment, he followed me inside without asking if he could stay. He already knew. You get the couch, I said. It folds out. The sheets are clean. He nodded. Thanks. We didn't talk about what happened, not that night. We just sat in silence. I made tea, he drank it. I scrolled through emails. He stared at the ceiling. The silence wasn't heavy. It was healing. By morning, I had a plan. I went back to Grandpa's house, the one I now legally owned but hadn't touched since the funeral. I unlocked the front door. The air was stale with memories and dust. I went straight to his study. The scent of old paper, cedar, and coffee grounds still lingered. His desk was exactly as he'd left it. I opened the center drawer and found the journal. Flipping through its pages, I saw everything. Dates, numbers, names, notes in his crisp, unfussy handwriting. And a new note I'd missed the first time, scrawled in the margin near the end. Sienna has what Diana never learned: restraint. Clarity. If she chooses to lead this business, it can outlive me. If she chooses to love it, it can outlive us both. I sat there for a long time, just breathing. That afternoon, I met Rachel for lunch and showed her the journal. She helped me register it as supplementary evidence in probate court, sealing off any loopholes that could be exploited later. We also drafted the documentation for a small educational fund in Marvin's name, just enough to support his degree without tying him to anyone's leash. Rachel nodded as I signed. This is clean, fair, generous. When I got home that night, Marvin was reading one of Grandpa's old trade magazines on the couch. You know, I said, leaning against the door frame, he always wanted to expand the business into eco-friendly materials, sustainable lumber, thermal concrete. But the board wasn't moving fast enough. Marvin looked up. I remember him complaining about that at dinner. I smiled. What would you say to an internship? Real work. No shortcuts. He blinked. Are you serious? Completely. A slow smile spread across his face. Relief, hope, perhaps a trace of pride. Then, yes, he said, I'd like that. We clinked iced tea mugs in a silent agreement. It wasn't the kind of legacy my mother wanted. It was better. A year later, I reopened the doors of Vanguard Solutions. Not as the quiet granddaughter, but as its next chapter. Marvin now manages our eco-friendly division while finishing college. He's becoming the kind of man Grandpa hoped he'd be, quietly capable, steady, focused. Patricia reaches out sometimes, in small, careful ways. I don't open the door fully, but I don't close it either. My mother has disappeared to another zip code for now, and that's okay. Some inheritances are measured in money. Others are measured in scars, in choices, in silence. Grandpa didn't leave me his empire out of favoritism. He left it because I was the only one who wouldn't burn it to the ground. In his journal, he once wrote, Sienna won't always be loved for doing what's right, but she'll sleep at night. He was right. I sleep. The wealth he gave me wasn't in stocks or property. It was in clarity, boundaries, strength. And in the end, I didn't just carry his legacy, I built my own. Thank you for listening to Sienna's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share to support us in bringing more inspiring stories, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new releases. See you in the next video.